Welcome, my friend Haile Gerima. I am very honored to call you that. And we are very happy to have you here to speak to second gen Ethiopians. There are some of us that are a little bit older, but mostly it's for the second gen. And for those of you that don't know Haile Gerima, he's an independent filmmaker and professor of film at Howard University in Washington, D.C. He is a leading figure in third world cinema and a foundational force of the LA Rebellion independent cinema. And he has many films, award-winning films. Sankofa is one of my favorites. And of course, Adwa and African Victory, which all have won him acclaim. But right now, what I find very exciting is he is receiving an award for the, with Sophia Loren. I have to say that I find very, very exciting. He's being recognized for that, and congratulations. Just whatever the award is for, same time with Sophia Loren. I just find that incredible. So congratulations, Haile. Okay, so I would just jump in and I'll just start this off, okay? So why is Adwa important to the second generation Ethiopians?
Well, I don't think it's only for second generation Ethiopians. I think Adwa is, by the very fact that it's a history-making event, to all progressive people, also to all Pan-Africanists, to Africans, and specifically to Ethiopians. It's a very important, significant historical moment. One, this is a historical event that says that imperialism, colonialism, however much armed they are with weapon, they can be defeated by spirit and mindset of people who knows their history. So it's not accidental that, for example, after the Adwa event, it was so significant to all other non-white people, especially. Even in Iran, they had the celebration was so enormous. They used to have fans made out of the image of As Emenilik and Ethiopian Haitu. Just a fan for people to fan their faces. The image, it's in the archives in Paris that I've personally saw. And so even Sudan, for example, a country that we're having a problem now, at the dawn of the defeat of the Italians at Adwa, Ethiopians, Sudanese people who are in constant struggle with Ethiopians danced for a whole week in honor of the triumph and defeat of Italians by an African race. And so to me, it is not just a temporary feel-good boost to have. We also have our our history makers, but this is a world, an impact that made a global echo, and later on to a lot of Pan-Africanists, including Nkrumah, Nasser, even Mandela. This is the historical precedent that said, yes, they can be defeated. And that to me is like always, especially we Ethiopians underestimate the impact of that statement, because it's like and that is the crisis I think we have with the Ethiopians in terms of how neglectful we are with this historical legacy.
So when we talk about the historical legacy, how was it also with African Americans and in Latin America? How was Adwa perceived at the time?
It's global first. It's global, and specifically Africans in South Africa, Africans in the United States, in Southern African American churches. It was invoked. It's the historical moment that gave even the mythological aspect of Ethiopia. The mystification of Ethiopia is really generated by that historical legacy. Even in the Caribbean, the impact was completely boundless, because here was a precedent that demonstrated it can be done to Africans who felt so overwhelmed by this white supremacist planet that was in the formation, where it disfigured the African race specifically, although the Asians and Latin Americans, but specifically the Eurocentric Anglo-Saxon cultural virtue. One of its achievement is in its war against Africans to disfigure Africa in the minds of Africans. And in that kind of struggle, many Pan-Africanists would go crazy for. I know, for example, in Black America, Duke Ellington composed a music I'm using now in the kind of part 2 film, where he called a whole jazz piece that's powerful, dedicating it to Menelik, the Lion of Judah. And again, the doctor that went from Haiti, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. He said, I will be an unpaid doctor of Menelik to protect his health.
Sylvester something.
Yeah. And so many Africans went there. Many Pan-Africanists went there. But it's also, you wouldn't believe it, Ethiopia was at that time, most of the global press was in Addis Ababa. Many imperialists have to first appease Menelik before they ventured in any part of Africa. He was actually becoming a licensor for any transgressions by the colonialists. And so, I mean, of course, over time, it's underplayed. In my upbringing, I don't know about you, Asi. I don't remember. I went to school in Gondar, Jimma, and Addis Ababa. I don't remember a day we celebrated for Adwa. I remember I was looking over pictures I have from Jimma. It was all United Nations Day we were celebrating. And we didn't even know the school, what it meant within current history, 1935. We didn't know what Balcha Hospital stood. When I went to Shimal Sabte, I didn't know what Balcha Hospital was about. When I went to Shimal Sabte, 1935 war hero, I didn't know why it was named, etc. Bakalawaya School, I didn't know what the hell it was. So I speak for my generation. As far as I'm concerned, we were the most miseducated generation of Ethiopians to come at a very critical time, but without the consciousness that we should have had concerning this legacy. And I will say this, I'll go to say this. And I think the reasons of why my generation messed up its historical moment is because it didn't know its own history. And one of them was this item, the Adwa item.
Yes, so let me jump in. That's a very good point, because I think not knowing your own history is also why we didn't give it to our second gen either. We didn't take it as important to do so. But I do want to ask you one more question about these people, these men and women who fought at Adwa barefoot, coming from all over Ethiopia. What united them? Where was the sense of I am, we belong, we are one? What united them? What brought them together?
Well, I think it's amazing now when revisionists talk about it, it denies how multinational, how multicultural, how multi-religious it was. For example, what united them is just, I think, the sovereignty of Ethiopia. You take just Wollo alone. Wollo, Oromo, Islamic Christian place, turned out so big. Nugus Mikael's warriors were fearful in that battle, because you got to know this. It's a war. Ethiopians finished Italians in 3 hours. In 3 hours, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the war was over. And this is like but to me, the spiritual aspect is also important, because Ethiopianism is not religiously oriented only. There's a spiritual part that we always undermine, that all Ethiopians in the end possess, the spiritual, I would say, inner dignity. How dare you, etc., etc. So for me, it's amazing how in my new film, I find so many of these descendants were at Adwa. Their ancestors were at Adwa.
Yeah.
And for them, it's like what Balcha said to, Balcha had a problem with the Emperor Haile Selassie, but when the Italians came the second time, he said, this is the spiritual aspect of it. He said, well, I don't like Haile Selassie. He gave me a hard time, but what am I going to tell Menelik and Taitu when I go? When I die, I left the Adara country to Italians. What am I going to tell? That is not, to me, it's beyond language, a spiritual statement of saying, I'm not going, for my personal problem I had with the king, I will not relinquish the historical legacy of what Adwa was all about, what sovereignty was all about, what, not freedom, but keeping the sovereignty of Ethiopia.
So what would you advise? I mean, I know you're very good with the second gen. You're the only one in that age group that they all run to. So what would you advise them? How do you, what would you advise them to connect with that? How can they make it into, I mean, it is their heritage, but a living heritage. How can they do that now?
Well,
Especially in Ethiopia and the Ethiopia that we have now, living here,
well,
I mean, being
first,
here.
it's to me, the legacy of Ethiopia. I mean, if an Ethiopian person, I'll tell you a story. In Homer's, you find the Greeks, the Carthaginians, and somebody, they were about to go to war again to kill each other. And they couldn't, because Zeus was not there. The god was not there he was the referee of the battle. And they asked, where is he? And they said, he's gone to Ethiopia for a wedding, to attend a wedding. That's far back in
Zeus went to a wedding in Ethiopia, the god of the Greeks.
Until he comes back from Ethiopia, the war is not going to commence. That shows you the power of Ethiopia beyond this petty, fabricated, feel high good time. As far as I'm concerned, Ethiopia is ancient. And for me, it's a vitamin that one needs to find oneself, to center oneself. So for young people, to me, it's in studying Ethiopian history. Not only, I mean, I'm not talking about king's history. I'm talking about the traditional aspect of, for example, the way we conduct adversarial relationship through Afirsata, or under the tree, the oak tree, we gather to rectify, family, sibling, whatever kind of problem we have. but it takes a spiritual integrity. And when I say this, I'm really talking about religion. I'm talking about spiritual integrity is the respect of oneself and the reflections of oneself in another person. And the fact that Ethiopia belongs to all the people, including international people who can drive out of her history personal knowledge and transformation. So for me, young Ethiopians have a lot to, not just because of Adwa, not because of war. I'm talking about even the historical calling of a generation comes from finding one's past. And the past is good, bad, and ugly. And it's not to be denied, but in that past, there's this amazing gold mine that one can harvest to empower and make oneself a history maker. So the last point I would say is young people cannot be spectators of the makings of European history. Young Ethiopians have to be like their ancestors, history makers. The Ethiopians, the past Ethiopians didn't ask for permission, for license, for a degree from England or America to be history makers. They were history makers. That to me is critical. My problem with the young generation is how much they easily allows the subjugation of their history-making capacity to new colonialism, in whatever form it comes at. This is my.
That is one. Yeah, highly. Yeah. So, yeah. I guess, I hear you and I hear your emotion around that. Yeah, it's a lot of things that we have to do, um, to connect with them, and also to those that are willing to be connected, and there's plenty of them, to work with them, and and bring the history and make it alive.
Anyway, Wasi, the point here is, I think, to me, especially to see the contemporary divisive historical process that only could make a wretched human being out of all of us.
Yes.
In this kind of time, we want young people who want to be honest, to grow, to change without absolute dogma, without, our generation. One of the things that killed the genuine Ethiopians who wanted to change Ethiopia got lost in the very dogma that became a religion. And in the end, it became counterproductive. And we left Ethiopia confused.
Yes.
I mean, we have not recovered. And again, it's the miseducation of Ethiopians under the Emperor Haile Selassie. However much he was good internationally on Pan-Africanism, the OAU, but when it comes to the crops of students he educated, there was a certain non-synchronic educational process. One, the fact in his period, a British designed school was completely replacing traditional wisdom, traditional knowledge, traditional schools. I grew up looking down upon traditional schools that my father went for Ascola. Ascola was the big thing. Speaking English can even get you a girlfriend. If not, you're out of it. And so the empire of English, the language itself, the work it did on Ethiopians is not yet examined, not examined at all. All these Ethiopians who were miseducated, taking Ethiopia into a terror, were fluent English colonial subject matters.
Yeah.
They're admired for their English. Most of the Ethiopian student leaders are admired when they spoke the good English,
yes,
in spite of the content. And so for me, young Ethiopians have to really go past us and see where things start to go wrong. And to me, it's in our education. I know when I disengaged with my father is when I became an English student, when I became the student of colonial teachers from Egypt, colonial teachers from India, colonial teachers from Sudan, teaching Ethiopians. That there is something wrong right there. And in our action, who we, when our whole idea of the educated Ethiopians should rule, who are these educated Ethiopians? What was the standard of their education? And how much did we make inroad in the Ethiopian society? When I told my father, when I was speaking to my socialism, he said to me, first, to study the Gadam of Ethiopia to understand the origin of socialism. That's what he said to me. He said, socialism, you're studying from Russia, China, study in the monasteries of Ethiopia to understand socialism first. There's nothing that you can't find in your own country that you're looking yonder with your mouth wide open. And so, again, I'm really harping on, my generation that I think left a great deal of even the contemporary confusions. The contemporary confusions we're facing, our generation set it in motion. We set it in motion. Every student movement in Europe, America, Russia, Ethiopia, we unleashed the destabilization or the dislocation aspect of Ethiopia that we are still harvesting to date.
Yeah. So thank you. I mean, Haile, this is very, very important. And I think the second gen that are on this call right now, they can also understand where the issue is with their parents, why we were not able to do what we needed to do for them. So I think we have to move on. And I know we want to continue this conversation. I really, really appreciate that you brought this to us today. And thank you very much, Haile. So let's move on to the next piece.
Okay.
Any final words? Yeah.
Stay strong, girl.
Thank you.
Okay.